Now, I just want to say, as a church, we don't always talk about money, but we do like to inform you about the money you give because we're grateful for that because of what it allows us to do. So, if you're a guest with us, we're sorry, but we've got our finance update this morning. And so I'm going to ask the wonderful Catherine Burnett, who's our finance director, to come up and to share with us our finances. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Ollie. I think of it more as a blessing that you get to hear the finance update, because it's like hitting the jackpot. It only happens about once a year. So be blessed. And if you're a guest, just enjoy it. Sit back. There's no responsibility on you. If you're a member of St. Mungo's, listen up, because we've got lots to share this morning. Okay, we're going to do this morning a quick recap of where we're at as a church in terms of our finances. We're going to look at the year from a financial perspective that ended in September. We're going to look at the budget for the year that we have just begun, and then we're going to have a quick look at some of the key phases of the Gateway project, the building project that we have just embarked upon. What are these going to be over the next 12 to 18 months? How much are the costs associated with them, and what part you might play? Okay, so where we are at the moment, we are in a season of investing our reserves for growth. That means that a couple of years ago, if you just flick onto that next slide, we decided that we would take the financial reserves of the church and invest them in growing the church in size and depth and in number. That meant that we increased our expenditure more than our income, with the hope and expectation that over a number of years, our income will grow back into balance. So that means that our income needs to grow by about 7.5% per year for about 3 or 4 years. And I realize that that is enormously ambitious in today's economic climate, but we do have a few good reasons to believe this is possible. The first is most fundamentally the faithfulness and generosity of God, something that we have experienced as a congregation over many years and decades in lots of different ways, like the testimony that Carol has just spoken about this morning, but also in relation to our finances. The second one is that we have a vision for growth. Our vision of being love is one where we reach out into our community, to our friends, our neighbors, and encourage them to find out about the goodness and the grace of God and bring them into the family of God. The third one is that we have a vision for going deeper in our personal discipleship to Jesus. And as we press into these spiritual disciplines, we hope that we will also grow in the spiritual discipline of generosity. And in the new year, we will be teaching into that as our block of teaching, so that will be something to look forward to. And finally, the last piece is that we have, as a church, experienced financial generosity and faithfulness in giving from many of you over many years and in some cases decades. So we have a great foundation for believing that this vision is possible. But we do recognize it takes time, and in the short term, we have deficits within our budget from a financial perspective. And in the last year, we had a deficit of a little over £70,000. In addition to that, when we were looking at the finances over the summer, I look at them on a weekly, monthly basis, but when we were at that point, we were looking at what does this mean for the budget for the year ahead. We were behind budget for both regular giving and one-off giving by about £30,000 to £40,000. So I anticipated that we would end the year not with a deficit of 70,000, but of a deficit of over 100,000, which called into question, is this indeed the right strategy for us to be having as a church? So it was at that point that I emailed everyone in our church family just to let you know where we're at, to encourage you to review your regular giving and to ask whether anyone was in a position to make a one-off gift to see if we could turn around the finances before the end of year at the end of September. So flicking forward to the table, what you can see on here is that our regular giving, that top line, the budget we had last year was 867,000, and we actually received 837,000. So that the shortfall in our regular giving we can't change in a month. So that was indeed how we ended the year. But in terms of our one-off gifts, we received 43 individual gifts in that 5-week period that totaled over £36,000, which meant that in terms of our one-off gifts, we ended the year actually ahead of budget by over £20,000. And so overall, in terms of our giving, we were within £2,000 of our budget for the whole year, which, considering it looked like we were going to be £30,000 or £40,000 short, is absolutely astounding. And on my behalf, on behalf of the staff, and on behalf of the vestry, I just want to thank each one of you that has contributed financially to the mission and the ministries of St Mungo's in the last 12 months. So on the next slide, it shows what impact that's had on the deficit. So the blue line on the left is what I thought the deficit was going to be, what I then thought it was going to be, and then where it ended up. So we have ended up with a deficit, yes, but less than we had even within the budget. In addition to those one-off gifts, we also received 10 increases or new standing orders. So that means that hasn't fixed last year, but it puts us in a much better position as we start the new financial year. So that is really good news. Thank you. So then let's turn our eyes to the budget for the year that we have just begun. So this looks at income and expenditure and the deficit in last year's and in the budget for the year ahead. And what you can see is that we're expecting both our expenditure and hopefully our income to grow by about £60,000. So just to give you a couple of the key drivers for that increase. The first one is the weekly cost of being in Balerno High School has increased from August 2024 by 140%. So that means, I know, that we're paying now £19,000 a year to use this building on a Sunday morning. That compares to last year where we paid less than £8,000. Now, we have done everything we can with the council, with Edinburgh Leisure, with the school, to see if we could minimise that increase. But we had a very beneficial arrangement for many, many years. And with all the changes that have happened within the council and within Edinburgh Leisure, we now have to pay the same as any charitable or community organisation would, including all of our set-up time. So that has, hit us quite significantly from a financial perspective. Secondly, we have increased our investment in outreach and evangelism. In this season of growing, we recognize that we need more people to hear about all the wonderful things that are happening within our services and across all of our ministries. So we're increasing our advertising for events that we run. We're also handing out gospels to everybody that comes to our Christmas events this year and across Balerno and areas of Livingston, because we've run fantastic events as a church, like the carol service, the spirit cafes, and we want more people to hear about them and to come and experience the goodness of God and the kingdom of God. The third one is we're going to be having 4 camps for our 0 to 18 kids this year. And although parents pay for the children to come to these, we pay for the leaders. And just partly timing and partly because we're doing a new camp in September next year, which is going to be for all of our young people from P5 to S6, we're just really investing in this area of our ministry as well. In terms of staff costs, we've actually decreased our weekly hours just by about 18 hours per week. Just with some of the staff changes that we have had, we constantly look to see what is the best staff structure for what we're doing. But I am recognizing that our staff work really hard, so we will continue to look at workload and staff well-being and which areas we need to put in additional time and effort in order for those ministries to really grow and flourish. On the next slide, this is potentially one of my favorite graphs, if you're allowed a favorite graph. So this is looking at what do we spend over £1.2 million on per year as a church, which is quite an astounding sum of money considering almost all of it comes from you. We don't receive any central funding. 98% of our income comes from our congregation. So this is the total cost of all of the different ministries of the church. So it includes staff time, building hire, property costs, and all of the direct costs of each ministry. And what I love about this most is that It shows the areas of the church that you can't perhaps see on a Sunday morning. So services, yes, we know we have services and you can see them and attend them. 0 to 18, yes, we've got kids across meeting in different rooms from the teeniest all the way up to our biggest teenager. And we can see that and we know what they do. But all of these activities on the left-hand side of the graph, which way around are you, I'm not sure, are how we express our vision of being love into our community, across the nation, and across the world. So evangelism, what are we doing to reach out into our community with the good news of Jesus? Our counselling centre up the road, our UK and World Mission Fund that supports mission partners and organisations across the world that do fantastic things to relieve poverty, to bring the good news of Jesus in lots of different ways. And the quota is what we pay into the Scottish Episcopal Church, so that's how we support our denomination across Scotland. So what is your role? Well, as a vestry and as a staff team, we want this to be a church where everybody is involved. Please be praying for the ministries. Please be praying for the finances that support those ministries. Please live the vision of being love. It really is a fantastic opportunity we have to impact our friends, our neighbours, our colleagues. Please be living the mission of the church, growing in your own discipleship and encouraging others to grow in theirs. Please play your part, whether that's serving or volunteering, but also in your finances. Please review what you have given financially and prayerfully consider what God is encouraging you to give in the next 12 months. This is the updated giving leaflet. It has the information about the budget for all the different ministries. It has a gift aid declaration and a standing order form. So please have a look at that if you haven't looked at it for a while. So, moving on to the Gateway project and where we are on this building project that we have recently embarked upon. So that left-hand block, the client brief, this is the phase that we're in at the moment. This is where we work with the architect in a variety of different ways, including the workshops, to work out what physical space do we need as a church to bring all of our activities under one roof. And whatever we do, this is going to be a really key document because it's going to really define this for us in a way that perhaps we can't see when we're spread out across different buildings on different days of the week. This is, I think, going to cost between £35,000 and £40,000. That incorporates the legal work that we need to do with the diocese to secure the access and the ownership of the land, and it also includes the staff costs of the project team who we now employ to work on this on our behalf. The next phase is called the concept or initial design phase, and that's the bit where we get to have pictures, diagrams, models, and importantly, the cost, so that we can visualize and begin to imagine what that building might look like. Now, this involves not only the usual range of experts. I'm just going to pull up the correct information here. Okay, so we would normally include engineers and quantity surveyors at this point, but because of the sensitivity of the site from a green belt and a community perspective, we will also need to involve the expertise of a landscape architect and a transport advisor. A successful planning application will need to comprehensively address multiple sensitive and complex issues from the beginning, and so we're investing in this phase to make sure that we maximize the probability of success of the next phase. So we anticipate that this will cost between £100,000 and £125,000, and we would love the congregation to contribute ideally at least half of that, and then we will put in our reserves to make up that total cost. Several people have already been asking about how to contribute, and we've opened a restricted fund for that purpose. So that means if you give to it, I can only spend it on building-related costs. And if the project stops before we've spent all the money, then I will return to you any excess. So you can give with confidence, knowing where your money is going to go. And rather wonderfully, we have already had a few people within our congregation that have either made one-off gifts or set up standing orders into that building fund, which has been so encouraging. At every stage, the vestry will be prayerfully considering whether to continue. This is definitely not a foregone conclusion. On the contrary, we need to continually know that we've got God's blessing to continue and the support of you, our congregation. So the next big decision point will come next summer when we've got the plans, we've got a clear understanding of how much this is going to cost, and then we need to decide whether to start the planning application process. Now, this isn't just a matter of sending them off to some council department and they send us back a verdict. This is likely to be a lengthy negotiation with the council planning department and the input of the entire design team. So that means that will cost approximately £250,000. And we will need to have that money in the bank before we proceed with that process. Now, I realize this is a really significant sum of money, especially because the outcome of that is not certain. And so this is a really big ask, to ask you to give $250,000 on top of all of the income that we need to keep running our church as it functions at the moment, which is why I'm telling you about it today, so that you have time to think about it, to plan for it, and just to know that that is coming. But partly because of the sums involved, but also because of what it symbolizes in terms of a decision point as a congregation to go for planning for a new building that will be ours all the time, every day of the week, to do whatever we want to do within, which is enormously exciting for us. I really want everybody that is part of the church family to feel like they have an opportunity to put something into that collection point. And by contributing financially, you're saying, I'm coming with you on this journey. Yes, it's exciting. Yes, it's daunting. But I'm prepared to come on this journey alongside you to see what God has got planned for us as a church. Now, to give a little bit more context, 250,000 divided by all the adults across our congregation is about £500 per person. Now, I'm not suggesting that we all give the same, or that some people won't be able to give that, but some people will want to give more. But I do think it does mean, with some planning and some thinking, that this will be possible for us as a church. In fact, if I were a cheekier person, I can imagine that in the future, when we look back, this actually will feel like a fairly small stepping stone in the context of a whole church building. So let's be full of faith and full of expectation when we come to that. So what can we be doing right now to be supporting and encouraging this project? First of all, please join in all the prayer and fasting if that is something that you're able to do. The first corporate prayer meeting at the beginning of October was so exciting. The next one is tomorrow night. Please be there in our We Church building, 8 o'clock, and just hearing from God together is so vital. Is God encouraging you to give a gift now? That won't be for everybody, but I think it will be for many of us. And let's get ready for what God is going to be asking us when we need $250,000 to go for the planning permission. I would love it if that was something that we just went whoosh, and then we were off onto the next bit. There's not a technical term for that, but we're going to know it when it happens. So I just want to thank you. You are such a wonderful congregation. The fact that you allow me time to talk to you about numbers on a Sunday morning as part of our service is such a privilege. I so appreciate you. Please come and chat to me at the end if there's anything you would like to speak to. Thank you.